For years, the idea of a true robotaxi has lived in a strange space between science fiction and broken promises. Every few months a headline would appear claiming autonomy was just around the corner. And every time, reality quietly disagreed. Cities stayed complicated. Regulations stayed slow. And most importantly, the technology stayed expansive, fragile, and limited. But something changed recently. Not with a vague tweet, not with another prototype driving in circles, but with a very specific update around Tesla's Cybercab, an update that forced even Tesla's biggest critics to pause. Because for the first time, this didn't sound like a demo. It sounded like a plan, and that's exactly why it shook the industry. When Elon Musk finally revealed key details around the Cybercab Robotaxi concept, the reaction wasn't just excitement from Tesla fans, it was silence from competitors. Analysts stopped joking. And companies like Waymo, the longtime leader in autonomous driving, suddenly looked less like pioneers and more like incumbents defending an expensive past. This wasn't about flashy design. It wasn't about hype. It was about something far more dangerous to competitors: cost, scale, and simplicity. To understand why this Cybercab update matters so much, you need to understand where the robotaxi industry was stuck before Tesla entered the conversation seriously. For over a decade, the dominant belief in autonomous driving was simple. If you want a car to drive itself, you need to overwhelm the problem with hardware. You need LiDAR spinning on the roof, radar units everywhere, pre-mapped cities, redundant systems stacked on top of each other like armor. That philosophy created impressive demos: Waymo vehicles driving carefully through limited parts of Phoenix, cruise cars operating under strict conditions. But it also created a hidden problem that almost no one talked about openly. Those vehicles were insanely expensive. A single Waymo robotaxi can cost well over $200,000 when you include sensors, compute, maintenance, and constant human oversight. And that cost never truly goes away. Every mile driven requires remote operators, detailed maps, and continuous updates to infrastructure. That's fine for research, it's fine for pilot programs, but it breaks completely when you try to scale. And scaling is where Tesla has always been dangerous. Tesla didn't enter autonomy as a research project. They entered it as a manufacturing problem. And that difference in mindset is exactly why the Cybercab update landed so hard. Because Tesla's robotaxi vision doesn't start with how do we make the safest possible demo. It starts with how do we make this cheap enough to deploy everywhere. That single question changes everything, according to Elon Musk. The Cybercab is not just another Tesla vehicle with full self-driving added on. It's a purpose-built machine designed from day one for autonomy only. No steering wheel, no pedals, no driver, no compromises for human control. And that decision alone eliminates entire categories of cost, complexity, and regulatory ambiguity. I think about it. Every autonomous vehicle today is forced to pretend it's still a normal car. It has a steering wheel that may never be used, pedals no one will touch, seats designed for drivers who don't exist. Tesla's Cybercab throws all of that away. That isn't arrogance. It's optimization. By removing human controls, Tesla is sending a very clear message to regulators, competitors, and investors. This vehicle is not meant to be driven. It is meant to work, and that's why Waymo should be worried. Waymo's entire system is built around retrofitting autonomy onto traditional vehicles. That approach made sense 10 years ago, when autonomy was uncertain and fallback options were necessary. But today, that same approach has become an anchor. Every added sensor adds cost. Every sensor adds failure points. Every sensor adds maintenance. Tesla, meanwhile, is going in the opposite direction. Instead of more hardware, Tesla is betting everything on intelligence. Vision-only autonomy has been mocked relentlessly. Critics call it reckless, dangerous, naive, and for a long time, those criticisms had weight. Early versions of Tesla's full self-driving system were inconsistent, sometimes impressive, sometimes frustrating. But something changed with the transition to FSD version 12. For the first time, Tesla stopped programming driving rules manually. They stopped telling the car what a stop sign means or how to behave at an intersection. Instead, they let the neural network learn driving the same way humans do, by watching, predicting, and correcting. This is a subtle shift, but it's massive. Waymo's cars rely on detailed, predefined rules combined with high-resolution maps. Tesla's cars rely on general intelligence trained on billions of miles of real-world driving data. One system is brittle but controlled. The other is messy but scalable, and scalability is the real battlefield. When Elon Musk talked about pricing, he didn't throw out a random number. He talked about something close to $30,000 per vehicle, and that number is terrifying not because it's cheap, but because it's plausible. Tesla already builds cars at that cost. They already understand supply chains, batteries, motors, and manufacturing at scale. Cybercab doesn't need luxury interiors or long-range batteries. It needs durability, efficiency, and uptime. Every design decision is driven by one question: how do we make cost per mile lower than any human-driven service in history? Because once you cross that threshold, everything else collapses. Taxi companies collapse. Ride-sharing margins disappear. Personal car ownership starts to look irrational. Waymo, by contrast, cannot get there without reinventing itself from scratch. A $2,100,000 robotaxi cannot compete with a $30,000 robotaxi no matter how safe it is. Even if Waymo's system is technically superior today, economics doesn't care, and that's the uncomfortable truth many analysts are now facing. The Cybercab update didn't prove Tesla solved autonomy, but it proved Tesla's aiming at the right target. Autonomy is not about perfection. It's about being good enough, cheap enough, and everywhere. Elon Musk has always been criticized for timelines, and fairly so. Tesla has missed deadlines before, but what critics often miss is that Tesla tends to be directionally right long before it is temporally accurate. Electric cars were impossible until they weren't. Reusable rockets were unrealistic until they landed themselves. Now robotaxis are 5 years away, until suddenly they aren't. What shocked the industry about the Cybercab update wasn't that Tesla claimed autonomy again. It was that the design, economics, and AI strategy finally aligned into something coherent. This wasn't a promise. It was a blueprint, and for companies like Waymo, Cruise, and even traditional automakers quietly working on autonomy, this raised an uncomfortable question. What if Tesla doesn't need to beat them on technology, only on cost and scale? Because if Tesla deploys even a moderately capable robotaxi fleet at scale, the learning advantage becomes unstoppable. More miles, more data, more improvement, lower costs, more deployment. It's a feedback loop that traditional autonomy programs simply cannot match. That's why this update matters. That's why investors suddenly leaned forward. And that's why the silence from competitors was so loud. This isn't just a car. It's a declaration. And if Tesla's even halfway right, the transportation industry is about to change faster than anyone is prepared for. In the next part, we're going to break down what the Cybercab actually is. Not the hype version, but the real machine Tesla is building, and why removing the steering wheel might be the smartest decision Elon Musk has made in years.